Okay, so let's use the tools in ColorLogic to do something a little bit more custom, step-by-step and methodical in case you want to build something on your own. Now, all the presets that come with it, which is all the RGB curves presets that create those beautiful grades, all those are included in ColorLogic. And if you haven't figured out how to install those into your Photoshop, watch the videos on that. We can also show you how to install your gradient maps that come with ColorLogic as well, all in that same video. So check that out. That way you can have it available to you at any moment. Now, here I have only all the helper actions that come with ColorLogic. You know, below this, of course, are all the gradients and, all the color looks, and those are great. But let's say we want to do something on our own. We're just not really sure, and you want to dial this in a little bit more step by step. So that's why we have the ColorLogic stack blank. Okay, I've got my edit clean. I got all the skin work I wanted done and whatever hair cleanup I wanted to do, ready to go. And now I'm going to start color. So I tap ColorLogic stack blank, and I get a layer stack that does not change the image. Okay, so what I've got here is I've got a curves layer set to color blend mode automatically. So my color, grades and my shifts, my transitions are super smooth and beautiful. I've got a luminosity curves on top of that set to luminosity blend mode. So I can make contrast changes, either reduce or increase, brighten or darken, etc. I've got, of course, vibrance and saturation. Also set the color blend mode to keep things smooth and polished, right? And then I've got compression levels if I want it. And then I've got a gradient map already set up to soft light for that color wash look and a default of 20% opacity, which is just a good start. Now, all of this is set up. For example, the gradient map is set on gray and none of the presets have anything on them. None of the layers have anything on them. So it hasn't done anything yet, but the framework is in place for you to do just that. So if I go to the curves, and I've already installed all my curves presets, as you can see here, all these RGB presets, RGB curves presets that come with it. I can start picking one, for example. Over time, you'll get to know them. You might be like, well, okay, I tend to like melancholy. I'm going to start with that. So now we have the grade itself. Okay, you can see what the RGB curves are doing. These are all different RGB curves grades that I created and I thought looked nice. Obviously, melancholy is very melancholy, very subtle. See that? So I've got to look. Now, can I change it? Absolutely, I can change it. I can change the RGB curves here if I want, or for the moment, I can just leave it, right? But then I can come here to the next, the next layer of curves, which is generally for my contrast. If I feel like it's okay, that's fine. We don't have to mess with it now. Vibrance and saturation, I don't want to mess with that either just yet. Compression, I might compress it a little bit, especially on the highlights. Bring the highlights down a little bit. On the output levels, there we go, just to kind of mute the highlights a little bit. And then on my gradients, even though I have the properties window over here, I tend to double click the gradient, which is set to 50% gray on soft light, meaning nothing changes. Now by default, it's also set to radial. I'm going to show you that in just 1 second. So now I can open up the gradients that came with ColorLogic, or any gradients you might have saved or that you got from somewhere else, does not matter. And you start tapping. And because the blend mode is already set up, ooh, I like that one. See that one? Like that one a lot. Now we are on radial. I want to show you that that is just my way of grading, which I do frequently for years now. A lot of times I'll add a gradient map, blend it in, soft light, low opacity with either a radial. Sometimes I do a linear, reflected, or diamond just to change the sort of transitionary feel of the color grade. So it's not monotonous. There's just a sort of a blend involved, right? The only one that won't work is angle. If you go to angle, you get the line down the middle. That doesn't work necessarily on most of your gradients, but you can choose radial. You can choose linear. Of course, that's going to go straight up and down. Reflected also works. It creates a little bit of a kind of a graduated filter kind of feel. And of course, diamond is a radial, but just a slightly different shape. Doesn't generally matter. I'm going to leave it on radial. And I'm going to turn that off and on. Add some reds and some pinks, but also a little yellow hotspot, right? Don't forget, you can double click that. And when you open that up, you can move this hotspot around. Because it happens to be radial, I can make it more yellow on her face or make it more over here to the side of her. There it is. If you don't know what's happening, by the way, take that layer and put it on 100%. Then you can see what's happening. That way, it's a very heavy grade and it's a cool look, but it's not usually what I go for. But you never know what you might like. So I'm going to put it down to 20% again. And now off and on. I've got a look going that I think looks pretty good. I can go luminosity curves. Maybe I'll come here and add a little bit of contrast boost, something like that. Cool. Vibrance and saturation, I'm going to pop it just a little bit on the vibrance, something like that. Keep in mind too, layer order still matters. This is just a default. You can take the vibrance saturation and put it above the grade, and that's going to add saturation after the gradient map is added. Little small details like that could make a difference for you, right? So off and on. There's a look that I've already sort of created. Now, I can close that folder if I feel like that works for now, and I can add my own layers to finish the image however I want, flatten to a new layer and continue on with another plugin if I want, whatever workflow you may have. But you can also use the helper actions to continue. So let's say I come over here and I say I want to add a highlight popper soft. That's going to add a little bit of highlight boost only on the highlights there. I kind of like that. We'll leave that alone. And then we're going to do probably a compression soft. That sort of works right there. I don't mind that so much. So now we have from this to this. I think that look is pretty good. And of course, I can go into the folder and change anything I want at any moment. So on the compression levels, I can also add depth if I want by adding something on the low end. I can add brightness if you want to use levels, if you want to use curves, it doesn't matter. The point is the framework is thrown out there for you to use the presets really quick and make changes. So here again, if I decide this is good, but wait, let me see. Melancholy, I kind of like. Let's play around. How about flanger? Slightly different feel. I don't mind that. Linear? Okay, different green tone there. What's pulse wave? Whoa, that's really strong. Maybe I don't want that for this one. How about saturate? Okay, kind of have a green kind of vibe there. Maybe tidal. Very, very subtle, very muted. Okay, I don't mind that. I can look around, but you know what? I'm going to stick to melancholy, I think. Here again, if you like it, leave it. If it's too strong, change the opacity. If you're really comfortable with RGB curves, go in here and play with it. See, on this one, the red hasn't even been played with, so I can add more red to it. I can take red out of it. This is, of course, mostly across the mids, right? But I can also put a point in the middle and add reds more to the shadows, something like that. And take red out of the highlights if I wanted to do that. That's a little bit strong, so I can scale that back. At least in my opinion, it is. That's the beauty of color grading, though, isn't it? It varies. There's no way of knowing exactly what you want to do. Or rather, I can't tell you what to do. How's that? How about if my gradient map, I make it 30? How about 25? Yeah, I don't mind that. But I'm going to take some of that shadow out. There we go. And now I've gone from this to this. And even in talking to you guys, I've got a look here in like 6 or 7 minutes. I could probably get a look in 2 minutes if I wasn't recording a video, right? So that's the beauty of it. If I don't like any of that, that's fine. I can scrap it, change the ColorLogic stack, or rather start a new one. Start with the RGB. Let's see what amp does. Maybe it's a little strong for the look I'm going for. Instead of modifying directly, I'm going to just change to another preset. That's kind of nice. I don't mind that so much. What about clarity? Ooh, that's a muted kind of feel. I didn't think about that. Contour? Very muted. What's decibel? Let's see. Again, muted and kind of vintagey looking. Oh, that's kind of nice. Drift is kind of interesting. Okay, cool. So maybe on my luminosity curves, I'll add a little bit of brightness. There we go. Kind of cool. My gradients. Let's explore gradients. See what we can add to the vibe here. See what we get. That's sort of interesting. A little strong, but that's sort of interesting. So let's make it more like a 10%. And I'm going to take that center point and put it on her face. There we go. That's just what I do, guys. It does, by no means is this some kind of rule. So this is similar to the previous look, but I went about it a different way. And now I have some bluish highlights, which I kind of like. Cool. And I can take that whole folder and drag it to another look. I can add helper actions on top. You know, I can pop the highlights medium like that. I can pop that if I wanted to. Double click for the blend if and expand the range. Change the opacity. Now I've got a little bit of a highlight pop. That's the whole point. Using what Photoshop already has, the powerful tools that it has, in a way that fits into your workflow. Because at this point, like I said, you can put other layers underneath that you might normally work with for color grading. Even below the whole folder, you can put a selective color for some reason. If you just feel you want to tweak one thing, let's say you go to blacks and take out, take out the yellows. Now you have bluish sort of blacks, and then you have the color grade on top of that and whatever helper actions and finalization layers. It's all about giving you flexibility in your own workflow, but still exploring color. By the way, keep in mind, if you're here going, all right, yes, I like this, but I'm not sure. Okay, cool. Turn that one off and come down to the presets. Maybe hit heat wave. Okay. And you turn on heat wave and you're like, heat wave versus what I just created. Heat wave versus what I just created. Okay, maybe heat wave a little less. Do I like a warm look or do I like my blue highlight look? Do I like both? Put them together. I don't know, maybe. That's the joy of having all these available to you and using RGB curves. Because even though I don't think you should stack 9 or 10 presets together in terms of these looks, it tends to get a little bit muddy. It doesn't get so muddy that it's useless. You might like the look. It'll never get like pixel mud. I mean, some of them can if you really go crazy, okay? But is RGB curves. That's the point. So the color is always beautiful and smooth. So maybe I decide heat wave, even though there's a whole look inside the folder, I just decide that heat wave brings back a little bit of warmth that I felt I lost, and now I'm happy with it. And I've got a look. And what's cool is, again, it went from there to there. I can just take these layers, my own custom selective layer and the other ones from ColorLogic, drag and drop to other images of the same set, and I can continue the color theme. See that? So that's how we can start from blank, as it were, literally blank, ColorLogic blank stack. And you don't have to use all of them. You can use just what you have. You don't have to use RGB curves. You can just come here and choose a gradient and see if something like that excites you. You never know what direction that could lead you, right? Maybe that bluish tone. How about this orange tone? Maybe you like that and you're happy with that. And you think, I'm going to put that on diamond or reflected or something like that. Put on reflected. I'm going to go to the curves and brighten it a bit. It's a little bit pink. I'm going to put that on top, whatever. There it is. I can even double click and just kind of move this thing. Well, hold up a second from here. Move it up and down. No. Okay. Reflected's not going to move that much. That's cool. Something like that. I can make it even 10% and I can add saturation. I can come to the base RGB curves and do my own changes if I want. Or if I just decide, no, that wasn't going anywhere, I am going to pull one of the RGB looks. There we go. That's kind of cool. Maybe I'll make my gradient a little stronger. And I've got a look. You see how I've kind of gotten almost in the same end result of the what's in my mind's eye for the shot, but I went about it different ways with different variations. And those little variations can really be inspiring. And of course, everything is usable and easy to, move over to other images and things of that nature. So that's the custom-ish way to use the ColorLogic tools that come with it in a very, manual, one by one, level by level, or layer by layer sort of method.